Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah. We are back again for the latest edition of Man and Nature produced by Batrisha Afrina. My name is Sheikh Muhammad Saifuddin bin Sheikh Muhammad Saleh and I am your host for the program. What do we have in store for everyone today? Inshallah, today we'll be discussing another topic under our larger theme on biodiversity, and that topic is sustainable aquaculture and biodiversity conservation. And today's discussion will not be complete without our special guest. And today we are fortunate to have with us in the studio Dr. Nur Hidayah binti Muhammad Taufik, Senior Lecturer, Institute of Biological Sciences, Faculty of Science, University Malaya. Assalamualaikum, Dr. Nur Hidayah.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullah.
Welcome to Man and Nature.
Thank you, Dr. Sheikh, for the invitation and also pleasure to be here.
It's indeed my pleasure as well.
Yeah.
Right, Doctor, to get the ball rolling on our discussion, let's look at the term aquaculture. I believe many may be aware of the term, but may not be too familiar with its meaning. Perhaps, Doctor, you could start by sharing with our listeners what is meant by aquaculture and how do we ensure sustainable practice of aquaculture?
All right. So aquaculture is actually the farming of aquatic organisms. So aquatic organisms here, it can be from animals like fish, shellfish, mollusks, bivalve, even reptiles, even crocodiles.
reptiles.
Yeah,
Okay.
so even reptiles. So all these species are aquatic animals, and we can also plant microalgae, seaweeds. Those are considered aquatic organisms that we can farm within aquaculture industry. So a lot of people might understand that aquaculture actually produce seafood. Yes, seafood is one part of the solutions for aquaculture, part of the outputs. But we also have other products coming from aquaculture, other outputs. Like, for example, pharmaceuticals, biological compounds extracted from this aquatic organism to produce cosmetics, pharmaceuticals, source of renewable energy like microalgae.
Yeah.
And one of the topics that we will be discussing now is for conservation efforts. So aquaculture as a way to conserve the ecosystem, to protect the biodiversity, and also at the same time produce nutritious protein source for the human population, growing human population. Yeah, so in order for us to practice sustainable aquaculture, to ensure that the aquaculture industry is within a sustainable manner, we need to understand the species that we want to produce. So there's a lot of species, aquaculture species being produced right now. There's more than 200 plus aquatic organisms that's being produced. And we need to understand which is the best species to be cultured. So what I can say is the best species should be fish that is at low food chain, omnivores, herbivores fish, or also extractive species like mollusks or oysters. So those kind of species are considered as sustainable species to be farmed because we don't require to feed them that much compared to the carnivorous species. And in order to ensure sustainable aquaculture as well, we need to look at the systems that we use. So in order to produce large amount of aquatic products, of course we need to have it in intensive culture. So intensive culture will require large amount of water. So how are we going to reduce that? So there's always research, there's always solutions to these kind of problems, and we might discuss later. And also, to ensure a sustainable solution for aquaculture, another thing is we need to consider the rules, policy, regulations, the transparency of producing these animals, these aquatic organisms. So once everything is in place, all the supply chain is within the sustainable practice, then that's how we consider we have the sustainable aquaculture practice in place. Yeah.
Right, Doctor, before we move on to the next question, I'm just curious. You mentioned about crocodiles being one of those being farmed. What are crocodiles used for?
Crocodiles, some crocodiles are used. We use in theme parks.
Okay.
So they are being cultured for that purpose.
Okay.
So for educational purpose, mainly for educational purpose, not for consumption. So so it's considered as aquaculture species as
see,
well.
I see.
So reptiles, and then I think reptiles lah. That's the most what people don't probably don't queries about. So crocodile is one species that we might turtle and so on.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Moving on, Doctor. What are the ways in which sustainable aquaculture practices can contribute to the reduction of pressure on wild fish populations and the promotion of biodiversity in marine ecosystems?
So, in order for us to reduce the pressure for wild caught fish, aquaculture is actually one of the solution being introduced to reduce the pressure of wild caught fish initially. So we have seen the tremendous growth of aquaculture for the past few decades. I mean the industrial aquaculture, because before this, mostly aquaculture was produced extensively. There's not much. It's not like high intensive culture, but right now we have seen far more high stocking density of aquaculture within the industries. So wild caught fish is one of the problems for biodiversity. So one thing I would like to acknowledge that in aquaculture we have fish that's been cultured using wild caught fish. So we harvest the wild caught fish to produce fish meal. Okay, so this fish meal being processed, and then we use that for our own fish culture. So that's not a sustainable solutions. And what we can do is try to mitigate this issue by having alternative solutions like plant-based culture, plant-based feed. We can have insects-based. That's my nature of research. We also have microalgae, algae-based protein. So we can reduce the use of these wild caught fish from being used for the aquaculture industry. And other than that, we also need to understand that when we want to produce high intensive culture, a lot of farmers opt for natural ecosystem. So natural ecosystem, yes, it has best solution for water quality. It has like huge amount of water. The space are abundant, but it might affect the natural population of the fish inside the ocean. So setting up aquaculture farm separately from the natural ecosystem is one way to reduce these problems lah. So I would say
Okay. Dr. Noh Hidayah, there is a growing demand of seafood as protein source due to the increase of human population. I think we are all aware of that. And in this instance, what are the challenges that arise in ensuring that there is balance between the demand for more seafood production through aquaculture and safeguarding endangered aquatic species and their habitats?
Okay, so in terms of balancing between two sides of the coin, so there's always challenge in balancing two sides of the coins. Yeah, so one side is we want to produce as much as possible seafood for human consumption and with the growing demand and so on. But another side is we would like to protect the environment.
That's right.
And maintain the biodiversity. So one of the main issue is, I would say, the pollution. So when we want to produce as big production as possible for aquaculture production, of course we will have to run it in a areas with high good quality of water. So, for example, in Malaysia, we have shrimp culture. So, that's one of the mostly critic farm animals that's in aquaculture industry. So, a lot of shrimp farm were situated nearby the mangrove area.
Okay.
So, this actually imposed problem to the surrounding area, and actually when we have this shrimp in a high density culture, of course we have to feed them, right? So when we feed them, farmers tend to overfeed them. So what happened is there's nutrient leaching.
Okay.
So the nitrogenous waste leach will flow through the mangrove and then go to the environment. So that actually causes so much problem, hazardous effect, not just to the wild fish surrounding the area, but also to the birds population, for example. So there's when this flow through water going to the environment, so it will lead to eutrophication. So this eutrophication will then lead to algae bloom. So algae bloom, and then of course when there's algae bloom, there will be depletion of oxygen. So so it will affect the surrounding fish wild population around the area, and at the same time, after a certain period of time, it will also affect the community surrounding the area as well. So pollution is one thing. So when we have this high intensive culture, okay, farmers will tend to use antibiotics to mitigate the disease issues. So that also will is another concern to be considered. Yeah. So that is why pollution is one thing. Another thing is, I would say, the regulations. We have a lot of policies and regulation in place, but we are lacking in terms of the enforcement part. So we need to have the society, the communities to aware about the regulation and take action where possible. Yeah.
So in other words, the role of the community is also important in ensuring that we do not the aquaculture farming do not actually result in harmful effects on the environment.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, Doctor, the significance of aquaculture as food source as well as its economic importance to livelihoods and employment cannot be disregarded, as you mentioned actually. However, the emergence of aquaculture in already stressed ecosystems has the potential to bring about detrimental effects. How can we actually integrate aquaculture practices with existing conservation efforts to achieve mutual benefits for both food security and biodiversity?
Okay. So there's a lot of efforts actually being done in order to improve the ecosystem while at the same time produce sufficient protein source for the growing human population. What I can say is there's a lot of successful farm around the world who have been practicing a good sustainable manner practice management in their farm. And I would say that we have to acknowledge this farm. And nowadays we have like a certification programs. ASC, Aquaculture Stewardship Council certification is an international certification whereby all these farms who actually have a good aquaculture practice would be certified. So their products will be acknowledged. And in order for this farm to be certified, they need to make sure that the farm is not located within the areas that could be biological risk area, and then they need to demonstrate that their farm is being release wastewater in a sustainable manner. So the water being released is being treated prior to be released into the environment. So that kind of farm actually would actually ensure that our products is considered sustainable. So certification is one way that we can look into to make sure that what we have, the aquaculture products that we have at the moment, is sustainable. And people might, right now, a lot of people actually looking forward to have products that is produced sustainably. So education, okay, awareness, creating awareness towards the society and the communities, especially the farmers who actually will be raising the animals, is important, I would say. So yeah, that's what I can say on this.
You mentioned about the certification ASC.
ASC.
Who does the certification in Malaysia?
In Malaysia, it's very hard to get certified for this
okay.
certification, but last year we have one farm in Tawau, a shrimp farm. So they actually get certified for this. That is the first fish farm in Malaysia that's been certified.
Okay.
Because the reason is because their farm is located within the mangrove area, but then a lot of common farm, they just release the wastewater to the mangrove, so that's a concern. But for this farm, they managed to pre-treat the wastewater, and the water actually is much more better coming out from their farm compared to when it came into their farm. So yeah, so that's what we want to achieve for the farms.
So basically, the farm in Tawau can be considered as a model for other farms in the country.
Yeah, it's the first in Malaysia. In other countries, there's also these certified farms. In Australia, it's already been there. They requested, the communities, the society requested for sustainable products to be produced from their farms. So yeah, so the farmers is really need to make sure that the farm follow the regulations according to ASC certification. Yeah.
Right. Talking about sustainability, what are some examples of successful sustainable aquaculture that are being implemented around the world, and what makes them effective in your opinion?
I would say that farms like I've mentioned earlier, the farm in Tawau. So this farm has been one of look into farms. So farms that we can consider a good sustainable farm. And then we also have in Australia farms that have been certified with ASC as well, because over there they also have like a very huge ponds, acres of ponds, shrimp ponds basically. So what they do is they have this biofiltration system which consists of seaweed. So they use this seaweed as a biofilter, as a bioremediation agent to ensure that the water quality when going out to the mangrove. They also have constructed mangrove around their farm. So before it goes into the sea, it will be pre-treated first. So they use this seaweed as a way to treat them, and that's in Australia. And there's also in European countries like in Norway. So Norway has been a very important producer for salmon. So it has been ages salmon producer there. So their communities, the societies actually really looking into sustainable salmon farm. So how they make sure that their salmon is accepted by the consumer is by having a good feeding strategies. So a lot of people don't understand sometimes that feeding actually could contribute to really hazardous effect, because the feed that the animal consume will have some ingredients that might contain high nitrogen content. So if the nitrogen content or the protein content is very high compared to the nutritional requirement of the fish, and if it's been overfed, the fish will then release huge amount of waste, nitrogenous waste, and that will create chaos to the water quality. And it's not just that, the fish will then suffer from a lot of diseases, and that is why mitigation issues is very important. So they actually use, there's a lot of land-based system over there, so whereby we can actually produce the fish indoor culture. So in fact, in UM as well, we have our own urban farm in UM. So we culture the fish indoor with tanks, modular tanks. It's called recirculation aquaculture system. So by using that kind of system, we could reduce the amount of water being used, and the waste will be pre-treated before it's been discharged. And this is a good option, especially for those living in the urban areas. So we don't have to rely to fish or seafood coming from the rurals. We can produce our own. So this kind of urban modular recirculation system is, I think, would be the future trend of aquaculture, because more and more people coming towards or moving towards the urban area. So having this kind of system would help a lot.
That would make the urban community more self-sufficient.
Yeah.
Doctor, our local aquaculture industry will definitely, I think, continuously expand seafood production, and more people can include seafood into their diets. In your opinion, how can local communities contribute to the promotion of sustainable practices that safeguard the biodiversity of their surrounding waters?
Okay, so local communities are the most important people that we need to ensure their understanding of the situation or the systems that they set up within their environment. So they probably have huge or wealth of knowledge about their environment, but we also need to ensure that they are resilient. Okay, we have to enhance their resilience for these communities and ecosystem. I would say that having the local communities being involved in the decision making to build the aquaculture industries within the area is important. So we need to raise awareness to make sure that they understand what kind of farm they would want to build within their area, and engaging with them. I mean, like the policymakers engage with them, educate them on what are the important aspects in terms of sustainable aquaculture should be in place within the area, and we can also have more collaboration, more sharing what's the best practice to ensure that the surrounding area or the production of aquaculture within the area is within a sustainable manner. So we have a lot of, for example, Department of Fisheries, we can have NGOs, and also the research institution like in universities. So all of these people, we have the knowledge. We need to create the awareness towards these farmers, and these farmers they understand how to raise the fish, but they might not understand what are the consequences in the future if they don't treat their environment better now. So it's the effort from all people, from all parties, that would make the world different, I would say, because I believe that us, we are the human, we are the Khalifah. it's our responsibility to ensure that this world is in good hand. We are not just inherit this earth, but we also borrow it from our future generations. So it's our responsible to make sure that all this knowledge, all this information being communicated to everybody who are involved in this industry. Yeah. So yep.
I think you've mentioned throughout the program a few times the word awareness. I think that's an important point that we need to remember. We're coming to the end of our program, Dr. Hidayah. Maybe you'd like to share some concluding remarks with our listeners?
Okay. As a conclusion, I would say that aquaculture industry is very important for to make sure that we have sufficient protein source, because without this aquaculture industry, without these industries, we won't be able to feed this coming 9 billion peoples. But in order for us to move forward, there should be collaborative effort from all parties. So for me as a researcher, we are problem solver. So there's a lot of problem coming, and we solve the problems. So yeah, so probably if anybody would like to collaborate in terms of research related to aquaculture, so yeah, we're here in we have a lot of expertise there. We can work together.
Inshallah. Thank you, Dr. Nur Hidayah, for enlightening us on the topic sustainable aquaculture and biodiversity conservation. What's important here, I think, is to strive for balance between ensuring livelihoods through aquaculture and ensuring the diverse ecosystems are not compromised or threatened. While Islam does not specifically mention about aquaculture, Islam has actually given us a number of general principles relating to environmental stewardship. And perhaps to sum up our discussion, some of the things that has been mentioned by Dr. Hidayah. The first, she actually mentioned about the importance of being a responsible Khalifah. I think this is very true. Muslims are responsible to manage our natural resources wisely and also responsibly to ensure sustainability. Aquaculture, if conducted responsibly, aligns with the principle by providing food and livelihood opportunities while preserving natural aquatic ecosystems. Dr. Hidayah also mentioned about sustainability. If you look into the into some verses of the Quran, for example, in verse 205 of Surah Al-Baqarah, there is a verse that is translated to the effect that, "And when they leave you, they strive throughout the land to spread mischief in it and destroy crops and cattle. Allah does not like mischief." This verse, ladies and gentlemen, actually stresses that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not like fasad or mischief. Therefore, sustainable aquaculture practices must do no harm to the environment, deplete resources, or cause pollution. In other words, Islam encourages methods that maintain the ecological balance and avoid excessive exploitation. The third point is related to the second point, actually, which is if you look at Islam, there is a principle called La darar wa la dirar, which is harm prevention. Aquaculture practices should avoid causing harm to the environment, other species, or human communities, and this includes efforts to minimize pollution, avoiding overfishing, and preventing the spread of diseases. This has also been mentioned by our guest today. The fourth point is related to the concept of ihsan. Islam teaches kindness and compassion towards animals. In aquaculture, this translates to ensuring that fish and other aquatic organisms are treated humanely, provided with appropriate living conditions, and not subjected to unnecessary suffering. And finally, the fifth point, I think, has to do with economic and social justice. Islam encourages equitable distribution of resources. Aquaculture can contribute to food security and economic development, especially in communities where fishing is a traditional livelihood. Therefore, we must ensure that aquaculture benefits local communities and does not exploit them. It looks like we have come to the end of our program for this week's Men and Nature. I would like to thank again our special guest, Dr. Nur Hidayah binti Muhammad Taufik, for gracing our program today. Thank you, Dr. Nur Hidayah, for your sharing, and I'm sure that our listeners have gained a lot of new information and knowledge from you today. For the last 30 minutes, you have been listening to Man and Nature. I'm Sheikh Muhammad Saifuddin bin Sheikh Muhammad Saleh, signing off until next week. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi